Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. If you don't have the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at Just Saying, no G, WJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to check us out on Spotify. It's in your ears at Just Saying Football. Buddy, it is our award show. Um, and just to let everybody know in advance, these were made in week 18 of the regular season with some minor adjustments given the wild card and what happened then. But the conference championship has happened. We have not made any changes to these whatsoever. So that way everyone's aware the
Yeah.
influence of the divisional nor the conference championship has played a role in how we're doing this voting for our awards ceremony this year.
Yeah, and just going along with that, we now have this playoff in mind, but we will be going off of the picks that we believe are our personal awards, not just who we believe who everyone thinks should win. There's a consensus of who we believe should win, and reasons why. So, Sean, you want to take us into our first award, and we'll be going all the way through them all.
Yeah, we're gonna jump right in with the AP Comeback Player of the Year. Now, I got to give some honorable mentions here. Matthew Stafford and DeMar Hamlin being one of them, and obviously DeMar Hamlin should be in this consideration. However, I lean towards Baker Mayfield. I think he deserves Comeback Player of the Year. The reality is 64% completion percentage, over 4,000 yards, 28 and 10, won the NFC South, went into the playoffs, won a game against Philadelphia. Sadly lost the game against Detroit, obviously. But he was fantastic this season. I think a good frame of reference for any fans out there is that in Tom Brady's final season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he was 8-9, recorded 66% completion, 25 and 9 with a playoff appearance. So you're looking at two very comparable seasons. I'm not saying Baker Mayfield is
Yeah.
Tom Brady. I'm just saying from a Bucks fan's perspective, these are very similar seasons. And if you bring back Mike Evans, I think it's gonna be all the better for this Bucks team's future.
I love that. And what a season it was, like you said, big playoff berth for him.
Way to go,
Obviously,
Baker.
yeah, Baker is a great pick, and for a guy who was doing Carolina Panthers defensive practice snaps last year, comes back, has an amazing season. For me, I'm taking the Joe Flacco route here for my comeback player of the year. We had a pretty small sample of games, so a lot of people will have their disagreements with that, but all the reason for me is that the pressure of the situation, how he hadn't really been a starter in the last couple of years, and what you're able to do from kind of sitting on your couch in October. You come in, you help the Browns with all they went through this season, all the injuries. In 5 games, you have 13 touchdowns and over 1,600 yards. Right now he was the fifth quarterback the Browns had this season, and I truly think that once you make that stride, you can help in a team, and you kind of rejuvenate your career a little bit at that age. That was impressive enough for me for him to be my comeback player of the year.
Yeah, going from your couch to the bench of a game and having to play it, it's not easy to do. So you're absolutely right. And I think that's a good segue into our coach of the year, which I'll let you take over for this one, because Joe Flacco might have been around this guy.
Yeah, and that's going to be head coach Kevin Stefanski. Like we mentioned I just mentioned, this team had a lot of losses this year, including Nick Chubb, right in the heart of their season there. Kind of losing somebody like that, will kind of limit how everyone's going to look at your team for the rest of the season. And I give him a lot of credit just for how he led this team, over the last couple of years, how he led the this team this season, especially. He has kind of had opportunities to defeat. The one seed in the AFC was the Ravens. They're consistently the best defense all year. The run game was incredible, and right there, Joe Flacco as well, bringing them to the playoffs. I mean, being able to be a coach who can take on five starting quarterbacks in a year and still make the playoffs. That is incredibly impressive to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, and I think Stefanski will be in consideration. But I got to go with the man, the myth, the legend, D'Amico Ryans. And the
Heck
main
yeah.
reason the main reason why for me is they're coming off this 3-13-1 season. Everyone is expecting them to just be relatively mediocre, maybe at best. There was really limited expectations on this team. They're still dealing with the repercussions from what Bill O'Brien did when he traded away DeAndre Hopkins
Yeah.
for nothing, and then the Deshaun Watson trade, and it just for a second this franchise was just in complete disarray, and now all of a sudden. You flip it around, they're 10-7. They win the AFC South in the final weeks of the season when it really matters. They lock in they get a home playoff team. They get to win a playoff game. They're the first rookie head coach and rookie quarterback duo to ever accomplish these things. And that to me says something and speaks volume to what you're able to do. And like the Lions, their draft class this year played such a large impact in their success. Tank Dell, Will Anderson Jr., obviously CJ Stroud. So for me, I got to go with D'Amico Ryans. I just think that there was so little expectation for this team, and they just blew everybody completely out of the water with it.
Yeah, I agree. It is completely a new era there in Houston.
And,
You know,
and they deserve it.
it's like unimaginable, like you said, the expectations that were set to what actually happened in reality this season for them. Taking that, I'm just going to transition because one of my guys for defensive rookie of the year is now a product of D'Amico Ryans. They are going to be connected. Will Anderson, me and Sean were saying all last year, this season, is going to be, him showing out as the best defensive rookie. And the Texans went up, got CJ Stroud, but they also went up and got Anderson just because they could and they had been kind of creating this new way of the Texans, and the defense have improved all the way from the 27th all the way to the 11th. Huge part of that. We really saw him in 15 games having 7 sacks, 22 QB hits. He had 45 tackles. A lot of people are looking at Jalen Carter for this, but like we said, a guy like D'Amico Ryans can make a player like Will Anderson shine. You see this guy as a very impactful guy on a defense that needed a star, and they got one.
Yeah, Will Anderson had a great season. Devin Witherspoon also had a great season. Jalen Carter, there's a ton of really, really good ones. There's a guy who's probably not a household name. His name is Kobe Turner of the
Yeah.
LA Rams. This guy was a third round pick this year, drafted 89th. He had 9 sacks, which led rookies this entire season. 29 solo tackles, 57 or 29 solo tackles, 57 total tackles. Only 4 games started. This guy was basically a rotation player coming in and absolutely dominating. And the reason why I also have to give this guy so much credit, Kobe Turner, is because unlike the guy that you just listed, Will Anderson, or the guys I just listed, like Devin Witherspoon, Jalen Carter, these blue chip products that are expected to come in and make the immediate impact that they did,
Mhm.
there isn't that same expectation for a guy like Kobe Turner. As a third round pick, you're not expected to be the best on the field. You're coming out of college, you're not one of these top guys, and all of a sudden you had an incredible season and made an immediate impact on your team and the organization as a whole. So to me, I got to give it to him. And again, leading the rookies with nine
Yeah.
sacks. That's
From the
impressive.
defensive tackle position where you got Aaron Donald on your line already getting his sacks,
You
that's
know,
that's incredible.
We just got to remember Will Anderson, he was projected number one at one point. Devin Witherspoon, that's the number one cornerback this year. Jalen Carter was projected number one. Kobe Turner, who? Exactly.
Kobe
Came
Turner.
out this season, had a great one. Now I think that's another good segue into the
Mhm.
offensive rookie of the year for you if you want to kick it right off, my friend.
Heck yeah, we got a guy that me and you and the whole world kind of fell in love with this year as we saw him play. Nobody really expected Puka Nakua to, be this big of a part of the offense. You get a guy at 177 in the draft, and you say, we don't really know that he's gonna, you don't really expect him to be taking down franchise records on a team with Cooper Cup. And if CJ Stroud wasn't kind of in the MVP conversation, a lot of people are going to maybe lean Puka here. He has, great value for the voters. He has very well respected. He had 105 catches this season, over 1,400 yards, which is just ridiculous. Like I said, when you have a guy like Cooper Cup. So, we know who'd kind of be the second option here kind of going this year. But I mean, this is a guy they're going to have forever. And he is, a record breaker. So, Puka Nakua for me. What about yourself?
You know, Puka Nacua is an honorable mention, and we've been spoiled with great wide receivers coming
Yeah,
in and breaking records. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jalen Waddle setting the receptions and yards records just in a span of 3 years.
yeah,
And I think only Jamar Chase might have won Offensive Rookie of the Year that time, and uh, and I think so did
and
JJ,
JJ.
but no one has been able
Yeah,
to accomplish MVP or yeah, yeah, or MVP yet for one of those guys. Puka broke those records. That's fantastic. But I gotta go CJ Stroud. I think the reality is again, you win in the playoffs. You made it to the playoffs. You won your division. You set a rookie record for most passing yards in the game. You led the league in passing yard. Like everything that CJ Stroud did was so fantastic this year. From a rookie quarterback, it goes up there as one of the best rookie quarterback performances we've ever seen, for sure. And I think the sad reality is, oftentimes of the NFL, is that it's a quarterback's league, which means that
yeah,
when these awards are up, oftentimes it's going to go to them because they're handed the ball and making all these decisions. Like if Matthew Stafford was a rookie right now with what happened with Puka, probably go to Matthew Stafford because he's the guy throwing him the ball all the time. But
very true.
but for this moment, I got to give it to him. I think that's CJ Stroud, and I thought he should have been the number one pick. If you look at every single mock draft I made, I never
Yeah.
changed CJ Stroud from being the number one pick, especially after that Josh McGowan video, who's now fired, no longer with the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it is sadly just a quarterback's league, and I got to give him credit for what he did as a rookie. And again, with him and D'Amico Ryan, first guys to rookies to make it to the playoffs and then win a game. You don't do that. Like it's not easy in the NFL.
No, not even with a franchise that had that many losses last season. Definitely not.
Mm. Bring back the
But
red jerseys more often, also, by the way, Houston. Love those. Love those. Just want to throw that out there. I was playing Madden with them the other day. It was fantastic.
what do you have for your defensive player of the year? Transitioning into that, we were talking about these Rams guys. Shake it up. What are you looking for in your defensive player of the year this year?
You know, there's so many great defensive players, whether it's Micah Parsons, Miles Garrett, Max Crosby, Daniil Hunter, slept on frequently. Daniil
Heck yeah.
Hunter, just can't say enough. But I got to go with TJ Watt. He's the first player ever to lead the NFL 3 straight seasons in sacks. He had 19 sacks this season, 68 combined tackles, 48 solo, 19 tackles for loss, 36 quarterback hits. He's obviously the most elite or one of the most elite edge defenders. There's not many players that can literally change the course of a game the way that he can. We've seen it time and time again since he's joined the Steelers team that he completely can change the course, whether it's a sack, a strip sack, a block pass. It does not matter. The injury that he suffered, you could tell the Steelers were missing him in the playoffs just a little
Oh
bit.
yeah.
And again, he's the kind of guy that when he's in, your entire game plan as an offensive line, as an offensive unit changes. When he's out, playbook's open. Now you get to do
Yeah.
whatever you want. And I don't think people understand to do this 3 years in a row, to get 18 plus sacks, 3 straight years, to lead the league in sacks. When I just mentioned guys like Micah Parsons, Miles Garrett, Max Crosby, Dil Hunter, these guys had 17 sacks, some of them, 16 sacks, some of them.
Yeah.
To get 19, to show out over all these other guys, and to do this consistently over time, it's not easy. He definitely has the genes for it in that
Yeah.
Watt family, getting
uh,
from JJ. But man, I people need to understand how good he is and how well he's doing this consistently.
I love that. Yeah. I'm gonna take his division rival who kind of mirrors a lot of what you said. A game wrecker, a freak, a guy who can get you sacks every game. How about the leader of the league's best defense in Miles Garrett? For me, I'm gonna take Miles Garrett as my defensive player of the year this year. We have not seen him yet get a defensive player of the year. So it would be exciting to get his first. He had 14 sacks, which is the second best of his career, which does not always line up to a guy like Watts, but he also had 30 QB hits over 42 tackles. And, he is again, kind of the fuel for the Browns going to, amongst other things, to go to the playoffs. And a huge part of that started with the defense being consistent all year, despite all the changes on the offense. I truly believe that if they had all their offensive key pieces together, this defense could have done even better. But we're talking about a defense that had under 200 yards a game for most of the season. So, Miles Garrett, I think it'd be exciting to see him get his first. But TJ, like you mentioned, is if it's not going to Miles Garrett, give it to TJ Watt.
If it's not going to one of those two guys, I don't know what we're doing here in the NFL, honestly. It
You
would be a
messed
little
up,
bit,
Associated Press.
it would be really, really weird to me, quite honestly. All right, let's move into our offensive player of the year. You
Oh
want to
yeah.
go first? I did the defensive player. Why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. I will go in and tell you that this hurts me as a Giants fan, but it didn't hurt me watching him this year because it was honestly incredible to watch CeeDee Lamb play football this year. I mean, you're talking about in this scenario, you're kind of just looking at him, kind of taking the whole time you're looking at him and Tyreek Hill the whole season, and you're wondering who's going to finish him more. I mean, when you're talking about somebody you don't always think is a huge big play guy, Hill only finished with 50 more yards than CeeDee Lamb, about 135 catches for CeeDee this year, which is 16 more than Hill, 12 touchdowns on the year, second seed in the conference. Also kind of boosts his argument in the sense of, the Cowboys really didn't know what was going on offense, and you look right at CeeDee Lamb, and he would have everything God. He broke everything from the catches record, the receiving yards as well. And, that's on a franchise like the Cowboys, which has had some pretty good receivers play there. But this year, CeeDee Lamb is my offensive player of the year. I mean, 122 catches is unbelievable to me.
Yeah,
133. Sorry.
dude, he had I think he had like 135 even. No.
Yeah,
But
133.
dude, he had an insane season, and so did Tyreek Hill. Got to give both of them a shout out. Tyreek Hill also 119 receptions, almost 1,800 yards, was 1 yard shy of that.
Crazy.
It was really incredible, and the ability for CeeDee Lamb to break records that the Dallas Cowboys franchise have held for so long. When you look at guys like Michael Irvin and Des Bryant and those guys, it's you don't think those records are ever going to be broken. So got to give him a shout out. But I got to give it to Christian McCaffrey this year. I don't think he can win MVP whatsoever. So then they're going to give him Offensive Player of the Year.
I
The
like
real
it.
reason for me is over 2,000 total yards, was obviously instrumental in this team's success. 21 total touchdowns. He's been dominating the playoffs. They have a ton of cap space this year, which means that everybody should be worried. He's locked up. Nick Bosa's locked up. Deebo Samuel is locked up. They should be really afraid right now, the NFL. And one of the stat lines that was actually really scary to me about CMC this year is that he had 2,023 total scrimmage yards, which is absolutely incredible. There's so many scrimmage yards to have. But the next closest was Brees Hall. Would shout out Brees Hall. Great
Shout out
year.
Brees Hall. Yeah.
Great year. Well, Brees Hall didn't even touch 1,600 though. That means that he was outscoring these guys by almost 400, by more than 400 yards on the season for scrimmage yards. That is so hard to have the wear and tear, to be so consistent in the passing game, to be so consistent in the running game for a team that operates and has such a complex offensive system, moving him around. We saw last year in 2023, he threw a touchdown pass. This is a great year for Christian McCaffrey. He continues to score touchdowns for this team. He was a safe bet, I think, for the first 10 weeks of the season when it came to it. Absolutely incredible. Got to give him a huge shout out. What he's doing with San Francisco, why Carolina ever traded him to San Francisco to allow them to have him is beyond me, but everybody's happy there in the Bay Area.
Yeah, no, everybody is, and now we made this list a couple weeks ago, and we're looking at them now in the Super Bowl. Obviously, that trade has paid off. Well, this is gonna be his first Super Bowl, and I'm gonna say here, you mentioned I don't know if there's gonna be a chance to win MVP, and I know that you love Christian McCaffrey. The Associated Press just hates not giving quarterbacks MVPs, like you mentioned, but we are not the Associated Press, so I am gonna give Christian McCaffrey my MVP this year. Like you mentioned, not to be repetitive at all, but the amount of yards you build up, especially leading the league in rushing yards, while you have the offensive firepower, you do. I mean, you separate yourself from almost every other player there. You are on one of the best teams in the league, if not the best team in the NFC, and you are the best running back in the league right now, as far as all your talent. So I think, since 2012, since AP, we haven't had one. If anybody's going to get one, I feel like it's got to be CMC.
I would love it to be non-quarterback. That would
Yeah.
be great. And everyone's gonna hate me for this, but I'm going Lamar Jackson as much as we don't want to give it to a quarterback over here. But look, 13-3 makes the playoffs, secures the number one seed. There's a lot of conversation in the offseason. You know, is he worth the contract? Can he even be a passer? You know, there's still conversation about whether or not he can be a passer. Can he lead this team? Is he going to live up? X, Y, Z, whatever you want to question about him, the amount of scrutiny he got this offseason was absolutely incredible. So to come
Yeah.
into this year, throw 67% completion, over 3,500 yards, 24 and 7 with another 800 on the ground and 5 touchdowns was absolutely incredible. 5 different wide receivers had 3+ touchdowns. They lose Mark Andrews. They lose all of their running backs at one point. Zay Flowers was leading this team in receiving yards. Everything that Lamar Jackson did this season was so impressive to me. It sucks how the outcome happened in the AFC Championship game. Jack and I were discussing this long before this episode.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not what you want to see. But he finally made it to the AFC Championship game. He had a huge win over the Texans, which a lot of people were unsure about whether he could do. When you
Yeah.
watch the first half, I'm sure a lot of people watching it were like, "Oh crap, will he actually be able to pull this off?" I think next year it's going to be even better for them. They're going to get healthy. This is such a great team. What they did this year, really, really impressed with Lamar Jackson. I think he silenced all the haters. One of the most important things I want to say, by the way, about all the mentioned this in one of the other videos. Availability begins to be the best ability to have in the NFL. And if you notice, all the playoff quarterbacks, the guys that are in the Super Bowl, they played a full season. They were there for every
Yeah.
single game. Lamar Jackson there for every single game. So despite his ability to run the ball and take some hits from time to time, him maintaining this healthy, it's fantastic for them. I couldn't be more happy for him. I thought he had a great season, and you know, hopefully he wins an AFC Championship game and we get to see him in the Super Bowl one year.
Yeah, and that'd be his second MVP, which goes along, like you said, with all the accolades that he went through this season. This if there is a quarterback, like you said, it's got to be him. In a year where where quarterbacks injuries were worse than ever, and even our teams, Lamar kind of stood above every player and really separated himself there. So, hoping if not CMC, that it's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, it'd be weird if it was anybody else. I mean, it'd be
Yeah.
cool if it went to like CeeDee Lamb or something, like an unusual. I mean, you wouldn't love
Uh,
that, but you know, like it'd be cool if it went like that direction. However, again, Associated Press, they don't like non-quarterback MVPs. And I do think it should go to Lamar after all, but that's all the time that we have. That's our award ceremony. These are our picks. It will get released next week at the NFL Honors. We'll see who actually wins the awards, and it's going to be a great Super Bowl. We got more content for you.
Heck yeah, we'll be posting reels. We'll getting our bets out for you. We don't want you to miss it. It's gonna be the last game for so long. We got to make sure we make it count. And yeah, make sure to check out our Super Bowl episode we have out coming before this. Hope you enjoyed the awards. Let us know if you agree, disagree with any of them, and always make sure to check us out. Just Saying Football on Spotify and YouTube, and make sure to check us out on Instagram for all of our content and updates. Just Saying with no G, WJS. Thank you guys for watching and enjoy the awards.
Enjoy.